What's up everybody, John from Old Reading Farm here. Thanks for joining us. In today's video, we're gonna go over the 7 things that you need to know before you get started in sawmilling. So, let's get into it. If you are new here, first of all, thank you for watching. My name is John. I've been a sawyer for about 2 years now. We do a couple things on our farm. We saw for buildings that we make, so like barns and chicken coops and fencing and stuff like that. And we also do some sawmilling for, we have sold some slabs. We also do carving blanks, so I'll mill very simple like beams and stuff like that so that I can carve. So that's what we use our sawmill for. My story is we started with the Woodland Mills HM122 sawmill. That sawmill had a max log diameter of 22 inches and a max cut width of 17 inches. We now have the Woodland Mills HM136 max sawmill right here, which is beautiful. And this has a max log diameter of 36 inches as well as a max cut width of 36 inches. Okay. So the number one thing that you need to know before you get sawmilling is what are you going to use your sawmill for? So like I just explained to you, we use our sawmill mainly for making rough cut lumber for building outbuildings on our farm and also making fences, fence rails, and fence posts. So our needs in terms of a sawmill are pretty simple. You know, we don't need anything that's going to be super exact or super fine. You know, we are not doing fine woodworking here. Like I said, we do some chainsaw carving, but even that is very rustic and a little bit rough. So when you're looking into different sawmills to get, you want to think about what you're going to use it for. You know, are you going to start a slab wood business? Are you going to just make, you know, rough cut lumber for yourself? Are you going to try to sell stuff? That's all very important information to use. Like I said, we do mostly rough stuff, just quick and dirty, and that's my main thing when it came to a sawmill is that I wanted it to be fast, I wanted it to be easy, and I wanted it to be accurate. And honestly, that's what I've gotten with my sawmills from Woodland Mills. More on that later. Number 2 is where are you going to get your logs? If you're on a property like me, we have 30 acres. Most of it is heavily wooded, so we have basic access to as many logs as we could possibly want. There is no way that I myself will be able to harvest all of these logs and mill them. There's just not enough time in the day. So maybe you're looking to purchase land and you're going to have it cleared. You have them stack the logs. There you go. You can also purchase logs depending on where you are in you know, whichever country, but you know, specifically for America, for us, you can purchase any species of log that you can possibly imagine for the most part. But what I do a lot of times is I'll also supplement our own logs with logs from tree companies, because at least here in Connecticut, tree companies need to pay to dump logs. And usually they can find people to take the hardwood logs, but a lot of times they can't find someone to take their softwood logs like pine or tulip spruce, that kind of thing, because nobody around here uses that for firewood. People do use things like oak, maple, birch, ash, etc. for hardwood, so they can usually find somebody to take that. But for the softwood, they usually have to go to the dump and pay to dump it, which is very expensive. So I get a lot of the logs that I need for free, which is better for me because then I don't have to worry about cutting down a tree. I don't have to worry about the brush. I don't have to worry about any of that. It is great. Number 3 in relation to logs is how are you going to load the logs onto your sawmill? So I'm sitting on the bunks of my sawmill right now. My sawmill is ground mounted, meaning that it's not on a trailer. It's sitting on wooden beams on top of the ground, basically. And one of the sticking points for convincing my wife to get a sawmill was that I didn't have a way to load it. Now, there's lots of different options if you don't have a tractor or a skid steer or an excavator or whatever to load your logs. They, specifically Woodland Mills, I know they make an attachment that fits into the log bunks that has a winch, and you can get like little ramps to load up your logs. And a lot of people use log arches to attach to an ATV. So if you cut down something in the woods, you can bring it up to your sawmill and then use the winch to get it on there. We got our sawmill after we got our tractor, and the tractor was, that was a key. So we have a Kubota L4701 tractor, and recently I actually got the Titan Attachments 29-inch log grapple for the front. Recently made a video about that, so if you're looking for something like that, you should definitely check it out. It is the best. That made it a lot easier to load and unload the sawmill. Although, all you really need is a set of pallet forks and an old tractor. That makes a world of difference. Since we're talking about it, I figured I might as well be on it. So this is my Kubota L4701 with the log grapple on the front. This thing has been such a help when it comes to loading and unloading logs. But anyway, the next thing you need to think about is where you're going to store your lumber, your slabs, your whatever. Now for me, for the most part, I build with green lumber, meaning that it's not dried, it's just fresh off the mill, freshly cut logs, and they go right into building. There's a lot of different people who think a lot of different things when it comes to green lumber, but I mean, back in like the 1800s, that's all they built with. They didn't kiln dry. They would cut down a bunch of trees in a lot, and then they'd make their lumber right there, and then they'd build their house. And I think, I wouldn't say all, but as far as I know, most timber frame construction is built with green lumber, and they do that because green lumber has a great deal of moisture in it, and as it dries, it shrinks. As that moisture escapes, you know, the wood sort of fills the gaps. So when you timber frame something, all of the joints get much stronger after all the wood dries, because it all shrinks. So like, you know, the little mortise and tenon and whatever, that all shrinks together. So anyway, so for me, I don't need a ton of storage. You know, the only things that really take up the most storage for me is when I make fence rails and fence posts, because those are things that I do a big section at a time. So I sort of need an area to store a bunch of 4x4s and then store a bunch of 1 or 2x8s. Other than that, I'm sort of milling and then going as I go. So storage for me is not that big of a deal. But speaking of storage, you might also need to think of a place to store logs. If you're like me and you have tree companies bringing you logs, you're gonna need room to operate. So I'll give you a quick little tour of our, it's a little bit messy, so I apologize. So this is our sawmill, and then we have like all this room over here, because basically I come in with my dump trailer, and then I pull in this way, and then I sort of turn around and back down there, and then I dump the logs right here, and then I'll use my tractor and log grapple to take these logs from here and put them into different piles. I got logs everywhere, baby. So if you are if you are getting logs from another source, even if you're purchasing logs, you want to make sure you have a place to store it. And, you know, that's in addition to any lumber that you're going to store, but especially, you know, if you're going to start milling slabs and you're going to air dry them, you're going to need a lot of room because those things take up a lot of space, and you don't want to keep moving those around. You know, it gets a little tough. So, I forget what number we're on, and I'm sorry. So next up is, what are you going to do with the scraps and the sawdust, frankly? So this thing generates an awful lot of sawdust, as you can see. Also, that tub is full, and then this little pile here was all glommed on the side here. So you really want to have, and I, you know, at my old sawmill, the HM122, the smaller one, I just had the sawdust spray on the side, and I would clean it out every once in a while with the tractor. Here, I was a little bit lazy about it, and it really built up and kind of became a problem. So proper sawdust management really does go a long way in making things easier for you. And then you're gonna end up with an awful lot of scraps, And the situation that you don't want to end up in, especially if you don't have a lot of space, is with a big pile of scraps like that over there. Now at some point, maybe I'll chip that stuff because I have a wood chipper, which is actually right here. It's also a Woodland Mills ambassador. But currently I'm trying to use that as sort of a sound break for my neighbors. And that'll eventually, it's habitat for the animals in the wild. That's what I say. So anyway, there's gonna be an awful lot of scraps. And so you wanna have a plan for what you're gonna do with that. Now, if you are milling hardwood, mostly like oak, maple, birch, ash, cherry, whatever, you can probably cut that up and either use it for firewood yourself or sell it for firewood. You can probably even sell it as slabs for firewood. Some people will take, and again, I do a lot of softwood, so not around here, but if you take a bunch of scrap like this and band it up, you can probably sell it on Facebook Marketplace for like $100 or whatever, which is pretty good. But since I do mostly softwood, that doesn't really work. But I have found that I can resaw it on the sawmill and then feed it through my little wood chipper right here. That makes some nice wood chips, and I always need wood chips down here, especially down here, mud season. Whew, just the worst. So always keep in mind what you're gonna do with the scraps. You can always use the hardwood for firewood. Depending on where you are, you can just burn it. I'm in Connecticut, and they have pretty strict regulations on open burning, especially where I am. I also have a lot of very close neighbors, so I don't want to generate a ton of smoke. Anyway, chip it, burn it, sell it, or just keep it around. I don't know, because I have also used some of the scraps for siding for like my old chainsaw carving shed, which is actually over there. So you can do that too. There's lots of stuff that you can do, but just keep in mind, you're gonna end up with an awful lot of scraps. Have a plan. All right, so the very last thing to consider is which sawmill to get. Now, you may be surprised to know that I would recommend you get a Woodland Mills sawmill. Didn't see that one coming, did you? But so there's more reasons than just the fact that I'm a Woodland Mills ambassador, which basically means I have posted online sometimes for them. They have I have written a couple blog posts for them. So, full disclosure, I am a Woodland Mills ambassador, but I don't have a coupon code. There's no commission-based link or anything like that. So I don't make any money. The only thing, they sent me this power head, which means that I can use this to raise and lower the sawmill head, which, boy, this thing, best thing they've ever sent me. Really the only thing that's not the only thing, but this is the best thing. I think if you're getting a sawmill and you can have the option for a power head, get it. Your shoulder will thank you. But anyway, so which sawmill should you get? I always recommend Woodland Mills, as said. They are, as far as I can tell from my research, they are by far the most cost-friendly while also being beefy and strong. Now, to be fair, I have not used other sawmills. I've only used Woodland Mills sawmills, but I have used two of them. Started with the smallest one they offer, ended with the largest one they offered. And the thing that really drew me to Woodland Mills was, honestly, there was a YouTube channel called Sawing with Sandy. He's still out there. And if you are a beginner sawyer, I would highly recommend you take a look at some of his older videos. Tremendous, very helpful. But so he had one of these, and he always talked about how good their customer service was. And when I got my 122, it was true. Their customer service is by far the best of almost any company I've ever worked with, ever. And I mean, you may be saying to yourself, who cares about the customer service? You just get it and you're good. But with any type of sort of complicated, complex machine like this, you're gonna want to have some customer service, because especially one of the reasons why these things are so cost friendly is that you do a lot of the building yourself. So you do the assembly here, you set it up, and sometimes you need a little bit of help. And you know what? Sometimes things get damaged in shipping. And you know what? Sometimes things don't work exactly as planned, but you can always call them. They're always there. They also have a tremendous community on Facebook. But anyway, so their machines are great. I have not had The only issue that I had with this thing was the clutch ended up burning out, but I think that was because I had my drive belt much too tight. But guess what? They were able to send me a new one. Anyway, so yeah, so when you're thinking about sawmills, again, I recommend Woodland Mills, but do your own research. Take a look around, see what works best for you, because there's a lot of people, if you're doing like high production sawmilling, you are not gonna want a manual sawmill. You know, you might want a hydraulic loader, you might want a hydraulic turner, you might want, you know, all kinds of different options, in which case maybe you're spending like $50,000, $75,000 on a sawmill. That's not what I did. You know, I needed the cost effective, and again, you know, this is all manual. I turn the logs by hand. But anyway, so I think that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys have any questions about sawmilling or anything else, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.